Well, it's the Jamaica Bay Wildlife Refuge, well known, internationally known as a great place to bird in an urban area. A lot of these pictures are taken by boat when I'm out there. So this would be a photo in late May when all the red knots and ruddy turnstones are here and the brant geese haven't left yet. So that's what that one represents. Although I haven't seen a lot of red gnats last year, but we did have a few years ago, we had a good number. Let's see if I can move this forward now. Wait, okay, there we go. It's the only refuge that you can get to by subway. So there's a typical winter scene with all the brant. Sometimes we have upwards of 10,000 brant in the bay. And of course, it's in the middle of this huge urban area. We see all that gray areas, all development. Much of the bay. The bay was actually twice the size, a couple of hundred years ago. All those creeks. Is my pointer working? Can you see a pointer there?
Yeah.
On the screen?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, just all these different creeks going up there. They've all been straightened and channelized, but they used to go way back into Brooklyn and Queens, and they drained all the fresh water from the uplands into the refuge here. Over here, this Floyd Bennett Field, New York City's first municipal airport, was formerly 4 marshes over here. They were filled in to create that. And of course, Kennedy Airport filled in 4,500 acres of marshland. So there's so much habitat has been lost, but still the bay is productive, and it's mostly location. It's located along the Atlantic Migratory Flyway, the Hudson River Flyway, coastal area, and it's a big salt marsh and a huge urban center, so we do get quite a bit of wildlife. There you go. This is what it might have like, over 150 years ago. So there's still this was the old Long Island Railroad spur came out, and Rockaway just started to get developed in the late 1800s, and we had extensive marshes. It must have been incredible amount of wildlife there. This is 1938. You can see all the encroachment, all the development coming in on the bay. Now we have Cross Bay Boulevard coming across, so that was just developed. And this predates the so-called Refuge pond area here, but still we had the Broad Channel, a little community developing here, and the Rockaways. But we still had extensive marshes over here, especially in the Eastern Bay. So all of these areas to the top right, that was all filled in for Kennedy Airport. And a lot of these marshes here are declining as well. So we have serious issues here. Just fast forward a little bit, and you can see with Kennedy Airport, the Rockaway is extremely developed. Brooklyn and Queens really took all that salt marsh habitat back up there. Some of these areas here, the greenery, this is the Bell Parkway that runs along the north area here. But we had 2 landfills there, the Fountain Avenue landfill and the Pennsylvania Avenue landfills, which are now Shirley Chisholm State Park. So that's a state park. We have out here another state park, Bayswater, another landfill here. Some of these little bits and pieces were picked up at a really interesting program started by New York City Audubon, Trust for Public Land, Little Society. We all got together and did Trust for Public Land. I surveyed all the areas to find out which areas had natural values, and we prioritized them and tried to get them transferred from one agency to another. So this little spit here is Dubose Point. That was our first. Then we have Vernon, Barbados, Terra Peninsula, and a few areas over on the North Shore. So we had some success in picking up the little remnant pieces. But Jamaica Bay, we have a record of 340 species over the past 50 or so years. Many of them, maybe 25 or 30 exotic species or, vagrants, things like that. But a lot of it is mostly migratory, great migratory stopover. But years ago, some of the older naturalists like myself got together and started New York City Butterfly Club. And we started doing the butterflies, and we identified 70 species of butterflies. And then Steve Walter, I don't know if you know him, but he's got a great show on moths. He's the hawk watcher at Fort Tilden. He's really a good naturalist. Well, he kept at it. He identified 700 species of moths in Jamaica Bay. The rule of thumb is like 10 to 1, and it seems to work out here. 70 butterflies, so you have 700 moths. And 108 species of finfish. People don't think about fish very often, but this is a marine sanctuary here. And I have a list of 108 species of finfish, including some southern strays, like this gray triggerfish here. I found that, I took this out of an osprey nest. The osprey caught it, but they didn't like it. They didn't eat it. And of course, the thing that made the refuge great early on was the return of the nesting glossy ibis to the northeast. I think this was 1960. There was an article in one of the papers that ibis returned. So that was become our iconic species for the refuge. And we do get a fair number of exotics. In recent years, white pelicans every few years seem to show up, mostly in the East Pond, and this is the Eastern Bay here. And in recent years, bald eagles. We know that they're on the increase, along with a lot of the other high-end raptors. So the one on the left I took from the boat. They're standing on an osprey platform. I thought they might nest that year, but they didn't nest yet. And the one on the right is from a Raptorama program where Bobby Horvath brings a lot of his rehab birds. We're having a showing this coming Sunday at 2:00 at the Salt Marsh Nature Center in Marine Park. That's Avenue U, if anyone's interested. So this spring I saw this pair of ospreys by an old pair of eagles by an old osprey nest. I said, oh, it's our first nesting bald eagle for Jamaica Bay. But I came back 3 weeks later and ospreys were on the nest. So territoriality counts. I think those ospreys just chased away those eagles. This time of year, we can expect to start seeing some snow geese come in. We get up to 1,000 or so snow geese typically in a year. I'm glad we don't get more than that because they do eat all the Spartina grass. Snow geese never leave the bay. But here you can see there's the blue goose. Used to be a separate species, but now it's just a color morph of I guess these are greater snow geese. And here's the juvenile of the blue goose. There now you can see the difference. Purple martins have come into the bay in recent years. Years ago, Herb Johnson, the original manager, put a box up. We never got them for years and years. So for my 80th birthday, a friend of mine bought me this martin house. I put it up at the refuge during the pandemic. There was nobody around, and I chose a good spot. But the Park Service took it down, as they've been taking down any bird houses, feeders, bed. They don't want to do any management at this point. So that's a whole issue that we're working on with them. So I took it home, just down the road from the refuge, put it up on my dock in the backyard, and I had purple martins. I had up to 10 of them this year breeding. And they even got along with the little house sparrow that was breeding there too. But the purple martins are great. This is a Francois Portman photograph of martins taken right from the box. This is the original fake purple martin I put there to attract them. And so I thought that was a great shot. It's such a wonderful bird. They have a great little song. And Jamaica in winter is a good place to look for these guys. I took this from my car at Floyd Bennett Field. And I always tell people, use your car as a blind if you're a photographer. And just slowly creep up on something, keep the window down, keep your camera ready, no motion. And many times you get close to all kinds of wildlife in your car. When you get out, it's a different story. They fly away. This is Breezy Point. This would be, I guess, a male a couple of years ago. So every year we seem to get 1 or 2 snowy owls right along the shoreline. There's the Verrazano Bridge in the back. And I like this juxtaposition. This is from Breezy Point with the snowy owl and the the Freedom Tower there. This is the East Pond, taken from a helicopter. I was lucky during my career to get up in helicopters a few times, and really, it's such a different perspective to see the bay from there. So this house in the bottom right is no longer, that was wiped out from Sandy, and now this inlet here is larger, and it kind of cuts out into here. But this is the place where birders like to go, and in the spring, hopefully, we get the water levels down so you create a mud flat and you can walk around the edge of it. And it's a great place for shorebirds, and from mid-July through mid-September. And here you go. Here's some of the birders there. I don't see Tom. Tom, are you there? Usually you're in my picture. Tom comes every year. He helps out, along with Kevin Carlson and some other birders. And of course, we're well known for shorebirds in that time of the year. These are greater yellowlegs. I took this from my boat. The boat is also a good blind. I just shut the engine off and I just kind of drifted over to these guys. I call it the crocodile shot. Look, that mud bank doesn't it look like a crocodile? But I got very close to them. As well as this, it's a short-billed dowitcher. I don't know why we name these birds with long bills a short-billed dowitcher. It's kind of strange. But Whimbrels become increasingly common in years. This is especially right along the Rockaway Beach area and Breezy Point, Fort Tilden. We're seeing more of them there. Hudsonian Godwit last year in the East Pond. I even got him as a house bird. I don't keep many lists, but I have a very good backyard bird list because I'm right on the bay. And the marbled godwit, this is out in the bay along with some cormorants and oyster catchers. And this photo I took from an airplane. Whenever I fly out of Kennedy, and typically in the winter I might go down south for a week, and I'll get a seat behind the wing, behind the engine on the left side, because when they take off into the northwest, they circle around the bay, and you can get I took this with my cell phone. You get great pictures with cell phones right through the window of the plane. So here's Ruffle Bar. This is used to be a big nesting area for gulls, and even earlier than that, some egrets and herons. But the raccoons got to this island. Everybody left. But this little spit out here is a great staging area this time of year for the birds. This is a yellow bar hassock. These are two islands that we were restoring, that we did a lot of planting in the last 6-7 years here. This is Broad Channel. This is part of the East Pond, a little over the West Pond over here, and the bridge to Rockaway. And this is what you'd see this time of year. The brandkeys have come back, cormorants around, but there's still a fair number of oyster catchers staging out on that spit this time of year. And they stay well into, early mid-November before they head south. And I think even a couple attempt to overwinter here. But it's such a great bird. We didn't start seeing these until, I guess, the mid-'70s. I found the first nesting oyster catcher for Jamaica Bay in 1980 at Floyd Bennett Field. Now they're nesting on all the islands, the marsh islands, and the shorelines. So this would be a typical photograph that would be taken today. I took some photographs today, but this is to show you what it would look like. Lots of cormorants around, great double-crested cormorants, and even them are, more and more of them are overwintering in the bay. I haven't seen a great cormorant yet, but the oyster catchers and brandkeys, that's your typical scene. And, of course, seals. 30 years ago, if you saw a seal in the bay 30 years ago, it was very rare sighting. But now, with the cleaner water and great, better fish stocks, especially menhaden, we're seeing more seals. So this is on one of the islands in the bay. These are all harbor seals. Some great blackback gulls on the left over here. Here they are on a denuded mud bank here. This almost looks like a I'm not sure if that's a gray seal or not, that one. This is a gray seal. I popped that's kind of stranded at Breezy Point. But a lot of these people see these on the beach. They think they're stranded, but they're really not. They come out and they rest, especially the pups, and then they do go back in the water. But this guy was taken to the aquarium. Occasionally, I see rare seals, like this harp seal. I've seen them on at least 2 occasions in Jamaica Bay. And of course, whales, common, right off Jamaica Bay. That's Far Rockaway in the background. I took this from a boat called the American Princess, and they go out, I think, every day, I think from Wednesday through Sunday, and I think they're still going through this maybe into mid-November at noon. And I got this nice picture of a humpback whale breaching and diving. And dolphins, they're fairly common. We see them almost every day when you're looking off Rockaway shorelines. Striped bass do quite well in the bay. But this is the fish that really drives all this, is that the menhaden. It's an oily fish. It's the one that they scoop up by the millions and they grind them up for those omega oil capsules. But we really push the omega. There's a big fleet from Virginia comes up and they come into our waters, but we push them 3 miles offshore. So there's a state policy that they can't come in with 3 miles. So this is what it would look out like in the ocean when you see all those menhaden. It's very impressive to see such amount. Some of the marshes in the bay, just some of the projects we're working on, the bay marshes are declining. You can see this one is fragmenting. This is another one to look at. So they're kind of dropping down in the middle and getting chewed away at the edges. It may have to do with the excess nitrogen that came into the bay, coupled with sea level rise. So we lost quite a bit of our salt marshes. All the red area, red and green, is what salt marshes existed in 1951. The green area is what's left now. But this is what a good marsh should look like, with a lot of Spartina patens. This is the biggest and best over by the airport. So some of the work we're doing with the Corps of Engineers is restoring these marshes. We did a lot of volunteer planting over the years with school groups and scout groups, and we even got some funding to hire young kids to come out and work for the summer. Mitsui Corporation, some corporations. This is one marsh that was, after the first year, we had 88,000 individual plants. And this is what it looks like a year later. So it's been working to some degree. I don't know if they're going to hold up 10, 20, 30 years from now, considering that it's hard to keep up with sea level rise. And the marshes can't go anywhere because the edges of the bay are all spoken for. So this is the Rockaway Peninsula. That is something that should not be done on a sand spit, which is basically what it is. It's a barrier island. And behind the barrier islands, you have the marshes form. This is right after Sandy. You can see the breach here in the West Pond. So it took the park about 5 years to fix that after a lot of complaints. And the latest thing they're doing also is called the Living Shoreline. I don't know if that's going to work out. There's some of the kids we hired. Some of the other projects, of course, some of the beaches were very dirty for a while. We did a lot of cleaning up on those, a lot of shoreline cleanups. It's a coastal cleanup big event. We coordinate all the shoreline cleanups for New York State every, from mid-September on, and we document the types of debris. So this is a group they would call the We Love You Foundation, or the Church of God. And they would take huge items out. I would tell them no, and I said, don't pick that up. We need a payloader. Nope, they would do it. They're taking a boat out. They're working all weather. They're really dedicated to this. So we had a lot of work done in the last 20 years and really cleaning up the shorelines of the bay. This is an old marina where the guy just trashed the whole area. But it took 20 years to get rid of them. Finally got rid of them. This is what it looked like. This is all city land that he leased, but he illegally filled in some of this area over here, and he just totally trashed the area. But $13 million later, with funds from the nitrogen fund that we have in the bay. So a lot of the toxic fill was taken out, new channels were put in, all clean fill was put in. Then we planted the areas, and this is the first year after planting, and this is what it kind of looked like last fall. My favorite project is the Raptor program. I get a little grant each year to do that. So the barn owls have been working with people. This is Chris Nadareski, who bands the peregrines in New York City. There are peregrines nesting in every bridge from here in Jamaica Bay, all the way up past Albany. So they're doing very well. This is Dennis, who our master carpenter, who builds all our bird boxes. And this is the culprit here that we have to deal with, the raccoons. So that's why we put this predator guard on it. But I also put, on every box we put up, I put a little tree swallow box. And they're always taken. It's amazing. Tree swallows find them. This is Big John's Pond. Unfortunately, this year, raccoons got into the box, so I'm going to have to go in and evict them and fix the barrier, the predator guard. But for years, that was a great spot to see barn owls, which is actually my favorite bird. I think they're beautiful. So, Chris, we've been banding them for 30 years. We got some information back, but I'm not a pro bander anymore. I think too much of the banding these days is more recreational, and it really stresses the birds. So I'd rather just go in and monitor the birds' health, note the productivity. So this year we left the birds alone. These guys are about 4 weeks old or so. They still have a lot of down on them. Some of the productivity is amazing. We had as many as 7 in one box. And we banded all 7 of these. This is 5. We banded all 7 barn owls. And we figured that the runt, because they hatch out asynchronously, that the runts are not going to make it. You know, that the bigger ones are going to be more aggressive and get the mice that come in. But 3 years later, we found that runt as a breeding bird in Jamaica Bay, which told me that all 7 of those made it. Here's mom with a couple little just hatched barn owls. The next bird that I've worked with in the Bay for 30 years is the osprey. In 1990, we had no osprey in New York City at all as a breeding bird. So here's the menhaden, their favorite food. And I noticed that they were coming back, after DDT was banned in 1972, but one of our great environmental presidents, Richard Nixon, remember him? So a lot of legislation was passed during his administration. Not that I thought he gave a shit about the environment, but that he knew which way the wind was blowing, and he was a good politician. But anyway, so ospreys I noticed the populations growing out east on Long Island and drifting westward, so we started putting up more platforms around. So this year I had 31 nest sites. Not all was successful. Maybe 25 actually produced young, but some as far as into the head of the Bay Area. This is Nassau County, and others at the Salt Marsh Nature Center here. This is Marine Park, and this is where the Raptor program is going to be, right over here. And the one that we put up years ago at Breezy had young this year finally, and even 2 at Floyd Bennett Field on top of light stanchions at one at the sports field, and they made it. So it's interesting. One over here, this one nested on top of a crane. So they'll take advantage of anything. And this is what they look like when they're close to 8 weeks old. It takes only 8 weeks and they're almost fully grown from an egg to a huge bird like this. But they're really pretty docile for a raptor. The adults never attack us when we're at a nest. These guys are nesting almost on the ground. Many of them had the little Jamaica Bay green band on, which you could read. We did get a couple of interesting reports from South America. At least 2 of our birds wintered down in Colombia and Venezuela. So they do, and these are the males. They go great distances and then come right back to that nest. And This one seems particularly feisty, but once you're handling these birds and you get a hold of the legs, you got them. They calm right down. But look at those talons. You don't want to get footed by them. But they're all ribbed. You see all those little nodules in there? That's great for hanging on to fish. And they have four talons for really grasping fish on both sides. It's really well adapted. And these are the platforms we put up all around the bay, and they're almost all taken. So I say the osprey is fully restored. And Steve Walter has noted this year so far, he had over 1,700 ospreys he's noted. And they started migrating pretty early. I think it was August 22nd, he had a couple of hundred already moving south. But they're doing well, thank you. These two guys nested, well, these are the juveniles, but they nested on top of an overturned garbage can. And they made it. And over by the airport. So the airport is a big concern of ours, you know. So next week I'll be meeting with the Port Authority, FAA, EPA, DEC, DEP. All the agencies meet twice a year to go over all the plans for the airport and how to make the airport less attractive to birds. But not to worry, the snow geese never leave the bay, so there's really no problem with them. But a lot of the other birds do. Also, the great egrets are doing quite well in the bay, although we did lose a few of our colonies to raccoons. And but here's the big A380, that huge double-decker plane. And birds right around the edge of the area, just for size contrast here. And of course, we used to have the Concorde, which environmentalists hated because it really was very noisy and wasn't good for the environment. But I did have to admit I loved that plane. It was such a rocket ship. And horseshoe crabs, one of our other iconic species that we like to do a lot of educational programs on. And there's a lot of interest in horseshoe crabs now. And of course, the association of the horseshoe crab with the red knot and other shorebirds, which I'm sure you all know about. I like this shot. This was out in the Eastern Bay maybe 3-4 years ago, when a lot of them are clustered around some of these little marsh islands here and a little sailboat in the distance. But that was a good year for them. This is a typical, we get a lot of it, of course, semi-pollinated sandpipers are the biggest numbers, but mixed in here with turnstones and knots and black-bellied plovers. And so there's a good mix of birds on the islands in that time. Again, horseshoe crabs are a lot of fun. We love to do educational programs with them, kids. Another critter that we do work with is the diamondback terrapin, the salt marsh terrapins. And they've been decreasing in the Western Bay, but increasing in the Eastern Bay. So Russ Burke from Hofstra thinks they're two distinct populations. But there's a big female on the left and a little male on the right, and this is Alexandra. So she's a turtle expert. She also is taking over as program director of Little Society. I'm kind of stepping down, you know. At age 84, I'm going to slow down a little bit. I'm just going to do the boat stuff, and I'm going to do the fun stuff and the programs, the walks, the talks, and so on. But I'll still do the raptors. So this is Big John's Pond. There's the one barn owl box that's been pretty productive over the years. And in those areas, a lot of these animals were introduced by Bob Cook back in the 80s. Painted turtle, gray tree frog. I love these little gray tree frogs. They're really cute. It's like Kermit over here on the left. But notice when they're gray on a tree bark, you don't see this if you're 5 feet away. This is the Rockaway Peninsula, the mouth of the bay here, the Marine Park Bridge. This is Breezy Point. So this is Park Service property to about here. Then you have community property, the Breezy Point community, down to about here, and then Park Service property again. But this is the area where you get all that breeding of the of the skimmers and the piping plovers and the terns. This is just this September. This is what it looks like in August and September, and many of them were breeding right and very close to where people are. But there is a demarcation zone there. The people and the birds seem to know where to go and keep out of trouble. Okay, not going. There we go. Such a beautiful bird. One of my favorite birds. I see them feeding out here in the summertime, late summer, on menhaden, the small menhaden called peanut bunker. And it's typically at night. They feed when all the zooplankton is rising to the surface and the bait fish follow. The skimmers skim along at that time, and I hear them barking out here. And I'll see them sometimes heading right for my dock, and the last second, a 45-degree turn. They are so great at flying it and maneuvering. Just another shot I like to have out there. You know, it's nice to see such productivity. Common terns, of course, the piping plover is holding its own, I think. Although this is a newcomer. This is a ghost crab. 30 years ago, you didn't see ghost crabs. I would see them down at Chincoteague when I went down there. And then I started noticing some ghost crab holes. Now they're all over Fort Tilden. And so they moved up the coast, along with lots of other things that are extending their ranges. Some people are concerned, but I think the ghost crabs are actually taking some of the baby piping plovers. But I haven't seen the documentation. But these guys are predators. They spend a lot of time in the winter, especially eating all the clams and mussels in the bay. But occasionally they will eat a bird. Like here, this one just ate this whole tern. Beak, head, feathers, wings, feet. He ate this whole thing. Gulped it down. But, you know, hey, nature's not nice. And we can't complain. The kind of stuff that we kill and eat, right? This is, you know, people say, oh, those piping plovers, they're all over the place. Why is everyone so concerned? I said, no. These are sanderlings. I like this shot, you know. The photography I like to do is just the position of birds and people and buildings, and so the urban scene. I like this one, the kids looking at these little semi-palmated plovers, and people are saying, oh, look at all those piping plovers. No, they're not. So there's a lot of education that has to go on to convince people that we need to protect them. So here's the bay with some egrets, some great egrets and juveniles. And the biggest colony for a while was called on Subway Island. We had a nice colony of egrets, herons, egrets, ibises, but those damn raccoons got there and they just disappeared. We're trying to get the Park Service to remove the raccoons from the islands, at least do that much predation, get rid of raccoons in the nesting areas. Hopefully we'll get the birds to come back. But this is what it looked like back there. Some ibis with the train going by. They're unfazed. You know, it's amazing how wildlife adjusts to trains and planes and cars and so on. And we have growing number of cormorants. We didn't have them in the bay 20 years ago. Now they're nesting, and they are really aggressive and productive nesters, and they actually are pushing the other birds back. There they are. This is the scene, what it looked like today out there on one of the spits. Still a lot of the cormorants around. And of course, this character, which got on many of the islands. And my favorite pet here, wild pet, Edgar the egret, comes in my house. This is what he looks like when he's in full breeding plumage. And later on, he loses the color and the egrets. I had a couple of ducks visiting me for a while. Someone gave me this carved egret with him. That's what he looks like in the rain. And I told this bird early on, look, I'll give you some killifish, but there's no such thing as a free lunch. All right. So So I want good photographs. How much time do you want to give me, Ann?
We're happy. Please
Okay.
roll on. Yeah.
You're happy, I'm happy. But cut me off.
Yeah, you're good.
Give me a couple of minute warning.
Yep.
So our latest concern is with the National Park Service, who do not do any management. They're treating this place like it's the Grand Canyon, you know. And the only rangers they hire now are the interpreters. When I worked there, my title was Refuge Manager. My staff all worked outdoors. We did a lot of the actual management. When I retired in 2003, they dropped that title, and now it's just Supervisory Park Ranger. So that told me something. And I've been trying to get them to do simple things like let some of the areas to grow in a little bit. I mean, they're supposed to be concerned about nature and pollinators, but they don't get it, man. This is what in the 80s we used to manage in the so-called South Garden. I would do the first cut. I'd say to the maintenance guy, let me do the mowing. I'll design it. I'll leave the areas I want to grow in, and we'll just follow that. You know, we'll mow this once a year over here. The other, let this grow in. Keep pushing the Phragmites back, and all that was done with mowers. It's not a big deal, but they don't seem to get it. But this is what it looks like. We had all these wonderful purple gerardia, which is the host plant of the Buckeye butterfly, and they have nodding ladies tresses, and of course the pond. When I worked for the Park Service, I wrote up a pond proposal for the west side of the boulevard. So it's called a South Garden Pond proposal. And I covered all bases. You know, it was going to be good for the, handicap, for seniors, for children, for people that don't like to walk anyway. It was, I had it so it would be near the center. It would be easy but I'm still pushing for that. When we redid the parking lot, they actually wanted, this is, 20 some odd years ago, it used to be a gravel lot. They wanted to extend it farther. And fortunately, I had written up a little butterfly and wildflower management plan that was totally unofficial. And while I was staking the area, I went out and I told the guys, I said, look, this is a management zone. See, I got the management pay. And they were pissed off because they had to go back to the Denver Service Center and redo their whole design. But anyway, we managed to keep the parking lot a little smaller than they wanted. And then they wanted to put all kinds of weird plants in there, and I just ignored them, and I put in these nice red buds because I thought they're really colorful in the spring. And they did attract insects. They were great for bees and butterflies and moths, along with the beautiful beach plum. I love beach plum. It's a native coastal plant, and it's got great, it flowers in early May, late April, early May, so it's good for early pollinators. And of course the marshes, this is what we don't have the big forests like you have up in Westchester, but this is fall along the coast. We got the Salicornia, that's kind of pretty. This was about 10 years ago over in near Flatbush Avenue. There were about 8,000 mostly greater scarp, huge flock. I don't see that anymore. We still see good numbers of brant and good numbers of oyster catchers in the bay. And it's just a great place to visit, to be. This is from my dock in winter. That's Heckle, one of my friends that visits me every day. And just to show you what you can do in Photoshop, when I took the picture, I was able to lighten it or darken it so you can play around with your photographs. And this is a historic shot. This is back in the 70s. The snow geese, brand Greek. This is at dawn, the World Trade Center. And if I can shamefully promote one of my programs, next week I'm going to Chincoteague. Every fall I do a Chincoteague trip, November 2 to 5. And if you want to see flamingos, there's a couple of flamingos in Chincoteague right now. So they're starting to show up in places where they don't belong. But it's a great place to visit. If you want to go on the trip, contact me, just donriepe@gmail. I still have some room. Here's my boat. And the end. Thank you.